ingredients ready for our pork for our tamales. And I have a shoulder right here, pork shoulder. That's what we're going to cook for the tamales, for the meat, for the inside. So I'm just letting that hang out for a minute. And I'm getting some of the flavors together that we're going to put in the roasting pan to roast. So we're gonna cut these kind of in big pieces, and we're just gonna put them all in the bowl and in the roaster. So I have these little peppers. They're sweet peppers. They're not hot peppers. You can get bell peppers or the small ones. I just chose these small ones for today, but they can be either one. So what we want to do, we're going to cut both ends off of the onion, and we want these to be in big pieces because these are going to go into a roasting pan, and so we don't want to take a lot of time cutting them up. This is all flavoring the meat and flavoring the juice that's going to be really important when we're doing our tamales. So we're going to cut these in half. Just big chunks is fine. Big chunks. Same thing with this onion. Now I'm using 2 onions for 1 pork. You can use as many onions as you'd like if you want more onion flavor, but the 2 onions seems to work well with just 1 pork shoulder, depending on the size of your pork shoulder. Sometimes I cook more than 1 at a time just to have extra. Now if you have a little bad place on your onion, we want to cut that off, and then we're going to cut these again into big chunks. All right, the peppers the same way. So these are sweet peppers. They're not going to be hot at all. We don't so much have to worry about the seeds, but what I do is cut them in half and then cut that top part off, and that kind of takes care of the seeds and the little top there. I like the difference in the colors. It looks pretty when we're plating this or when we're making our tamales. You're going to see these different colors in there. But like I said, you could use bell peppers, you could use all green, you could use all red, whatever peppers you like. You don't really want this to be too spicy. The sauces that we're going to make for this are going to be where our spice comes from, so we don't need this part to be really spicy. Now with the garlic, a couple of things with that, because we're going to put some into the pork, but we're also going to put some into the sauce. So what I want to do is I want to get this garlic open first, get down into these cloves, and get some of the skin off. Now we don't want to cut this garlic up. We really just want to pop it. And by pop it, I'll show you what I mean in just a second. Get all of these off of here. We're going to use a lot of cloves of garlic. As you can see, I have 4 here. This is all flavor into that meat. So some of the garlic cloves, we're going to put our knife on the top. We're going to pop it, which smashes the clove and also peels the clove. It makes it really easy to get those skins off. And we're just going to use that like that. Some of the garlic cloves, we're going to pop it and peel it, and we're going to take the roast itself, and we're going to stab little holes in there to put the garlic into those little holes. The rest of this garlic, we're all going to pop, and we're going to chop it and put it into the sauce. So just popping it, peeling it, popping it, and peeling it. 3 whole cloves. All right, so now we have our roast and we have our veggies. And now I'm going to get the roasting pan and put it in the roasting pan. All right, so now to the pan, we are going to add our veggies. We're going to add our pork, and we want to put the fat side facing up. Now, we want to flavor the pork, so I'm going to have to turn it over again, but what I wanted to show you that the fat side always goes up when we're cooking in a roaster. I like the roaster because it's a slow cooker, and we can leave it on to cook and it gets done while we're doing other things. You could also do this in a crock pot if you have a crock pot. So we want to salt pretty generously. You can hear the roaster is already hot. I preheated my roaster. Remember, we're not salting for one person. So if it looks like a lot of salt, you're like, oh my goodness. We're not salting for one person. Now this is cumin because we're making tamales. So we want to get some nice flavoring in there. All right, and then some chili powder as well. Good seasoning and flavor on there. And I'm also going to use my secret seasoning, which we use on everything. And notice I'm pouring the seasoning into my hand because, one, I want to be able to kind of feel the seasoning to see how much I'm getting on there, but also I don't want to contaminate my seasoning. So I'm pouring it into my hand instead of reaching into it, especially things like the salt. Keep one hand that you can clean and use to touch things with, and the other hand you can touch the meat with. And I know I touched the meat with that other hand, but I have a towel that I'm cleaning it off with here on the top of that. Whole lot of seasoning. It looks like more than you would use, but remember, this is the meat that's going inside of our tamales. It's got a long cooking time, and we want to impart as much flavor as we can into that meat. So I'm going to go wash my hands really quick, and then I'm going to do the pepper on the outside, and then I'll put the broth in there. All right, I'm going to put about a cup of, I'm using a chicken broth. Now, if you want to use a pork broth, or if you want to use a beef broth, or even a veggie broth, I just tend to always have the chicken broth, so that's what I use for just about everything. And you can see the steam coming off of it because, like I said, I preheated the pan. And now I'm going to pepper all over the top. We're going to put this on to cook at 250 overnight. You just let it cook overnight, and then in the morning it will be done for you to pull apart. So I'm going to show you what that looks like when we pull that apart as well. Now, if you don't want to do it overnight, if you want to cook it during the day, it's going to take about 5 hours at least. So the longer it cooks, the better, but still you want to put it on about 250. I'm going to cover this and put this on to cook. Our meat's been cooking for about 8 hours in a slow cooker. You can use a roaster or you can use a crock pot. And now what you want to do is pull the meat off of the bone, and it should come off really easily. This top layer here is a big layer of fat. That added a lot of flavor, but you probably don't want that into your sandwiches or on your meal that you're going to have. But the rest of this will pull apart really easily. Once we get all of the meat pulled off the bone, you're going to see that there's a shoulder bone in there. And it's actually a shoulder roast. That's the bone right there. We're going to take that out, and you want to pull the meat into little shreds if you can. It's a little difficult sometimes, but you want to get as small pieces as you can. So it just depends on how you want it, and maybe you want rice today and maybe a sandwich tomorrow because you're going to have a lot of this meat left. One roast goes a really long way.